Greetings, folks. Welcome back to the Jason Damico Show. Special thanks to Simplecast for distributing to iHeart, iTunes, Spotify, all the great platforms out there, and YouTube. And been waiting a long time for this one. Our guest today is a Broadway veteran performer as well as a former American Idol featured artist contestant, with some of his most notable roles and performances including Theo in School of Rock on Broadway, Riff in West Side Story on Broadway, Dr. and Mr. Wormwood in Matilda on Broadway, and Robert Mullins in Peter Pan Live NBC, just to name a few. He's the founder of Jag Records as well as the Revival Sessions, and I've known this dude for a really, really long time. Please welcome to the show, John Arthur Greene.
What's going on, my man?
This is crazy. We were doing some math on calculating how long it's been, and it's been about 6 years, right?
About 6 years.
New York City or
Yes,
wherever
sir.
it was, Bowery, you know.
We were somewhere. It was either that or in downtown Raleigh on Glenwood.
Black Flower.
The Black Flower, yeah. It was somewhere, man.
Somewhere.
We'll figure it out one day. And that'll, you know.
Yeah, we'll have to, I think
flow.
we're going to need third parties to come together and just, you know.
Might have to go through our Facebook a little bit and see what happens.
So, man, I mean, look, I've got my talking points. This was pretty easy to put, you know, I have a pretty decent take on your life. I wasn't there for all of it. And I was 5 years younger. So, you know, a lot of it was, I was still a tween or a teen when things really started taking off for you.
Sure.
But I got to say, before we start, and I think I've told you this, but you've always been a huge inspiration to me, even before I knew about what happened. And we'll probably get into that at some point. Sure. with that story. But man, for whatever reason, I just always looked up to you. So I really appreciate the inspiration, and wow. You were just somebody that I looked up to in theater. And it just was, I don't know, it just was something that really stuck with me for a long time. And thank you for that.
Wow, thank you for that, man. It's a beautiful sentiment and beautiful word, and I appreciate you. I thank you for your words on that. Yeah, I was just living my life, you know. So it's always good to hear that you influence people or that you help people. That was the one thing that I wanted to do my entire life, was just help people. You know, whether through telling stories on a stage was going to get somebody to think differently about a scenario or a situation, or whether a role would allow somebody a different vantage point on their story. Whatever it was, that's why I did it. It's because I found hope in that. I found new life in that, and so I put everything that I had into it, and I would leave a piece of myself on that stage before I left every night. So to hear that that was felt in some way, shape, or form it's an honor, and so I appreciate your words. Thank you. I think it was
Christmas Carol. Come on. Right when we were
ACC, baby, theater in the park.
Man, and I think it was
Christmas.
I think it was 02 or 03, somewhere around there. And I was maybe 8, 9, 10. No, I was 12. I was 12.
Water down.
It's closer. There you go. A quick deviation. We actually have Poland Spring here in North Carolina for some reason, because, you know, it's a Northeast thing, but
also Deer Park.
That's native.
Oh,
I think.
I like Deer Park. Oops. ACC,
baby.
Christmas Carol. 02 or 03 was so the first time I ever did Christmas Carol, I was Peter Scratchit.
Scratchit.
Yeah. Little Scratchit kids. And that's what David Wood used to call. He used to call us the little Scratchits.
That's right.
And
That's right.
So I was Peter Cratchit, and then the next year, I was like a dancer or something.
That's it. That was a year.
But then I came back as the nephew.
I think that's it. You were
With Meredith
I think you were
Jones.
17
Yeah,
or
I was
18.
the nephew with those riding pants on and those boots. Right. Oh my gracious! What a costume! What a costume!
That was the year. So I was the 5-year gap. I was 12 then.
Yeah,
12
so
and
that,
17.
That had to be like
oh
06 or 07.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then from there, I don't know if we really were in NCT at the same time because of the age gap. And then you went off to New York.
Yeah.
Right.
I think we did Stas together or something, didn't we?
Maybe.
Or some.
I would have had to been really young.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
But ACC, baby. Come on.
Yeah. Let's get into your beginning stages as far as how you got into singing and, acting.
Sure.
How did it start for you?
Well, both my parents are ministers, so my first love was singing for the God.
That's right.
And so that's how I learned how to sing, was in church. And so it was like that's all I knew, like church and baseball. That was all I knew, was church and baseball.
It's pretty good.
Yeah, right. I mean, that's a good life.
Yeah.
Church on Sunday, church on Wednesday, baseball every other day, and like jumping on the trampoline and just hanging out. So that was my first introduction to music. And my dad was the pastor. My mom was a minister of music. So mom always taught me kind of the technique behind everything, singing, piano. And then my dad taught me a lot about different influential musical outlets like jazz and big band and not much rock and roll, but some rock and roll. You know what I'm saying? And but my mom was a person who loved, Leonard Skinner and Led Zeppelin, and she would listen to these records back when she was growing up, and she, I think one of her favorites was Ozzy Osbourne. I think Ozzy was her favorite person back in the day. Known this, right, man? The Reverend Dr. Diana Green.
Just wait until she sees this.
She's going to be so upset. She's going, oh gosh, how'd you say that? It's like now Brad Paisley is her favorite. Now she can listen to a song.
Brad can rip,
bro. That
man.
dude can write a song like no business. Bro, Whiskey Lullaby is her favorite song. And I
get a little mud in the tires.
Come on, but Whiskey Lullaby, like,
I don't know if I've heard that. I gotta, we'll have to listen to that.
She put that bottle to her head and pulled the trigger. It's deep, man.
Yeah.
Like, and it's like,
I gotta,
but it's so
listen.
beautiful, and he can write so well. But so those are my kind of influences growing up. Music was always a place to go where I could release and I could. Learn and I could grow and I could develop and it was always good to me. Music was always good to me. It wasn't a person who would lie. It wasn't a person who could leave. It wasn't a person that could disappear. It was always going to be there. And so that was, I fell in love with it. It was such a beautiful escape for me. And fast forward to when I was 8, my brother Thomas passed away, and it of course, that was a tragic freak accident, and at that moment, it was the worst possible thing that could have ever happened. But again, music became the soothing mechanism. Music became the coping mechanism, and then music wasn't enough,
right?
Because once you get to a place, it's like, yes, but what else?
Yeah.
Yes, but I need something else. And so music kind of took a back seat, and I started, acting a lot more and then dancing. And even still, music was a part of it, but it wasn't the centerpiece. And so I think that the interesting thing about music is I've always come back to it.
Did you ever want it to be the centerpiece?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. So even from the beginning, but how did that, so you get into acting, you get into drama, and even, dancing and choreography to obviously be on Broadway and musical theater. How did that transition happen? Was that more just from within, or did somebody suggest it?
I think it evolved a bit. I think it became kind of like a drug. I think the escape of being able to play somebody else because I hated who I was, and I blame myself for my brother's death. I think that all in all was the reason why I would lose myself in these roles, and I would really try as hard as I could to play as dark as I could, so that, you know, I could feel something different than the pain that was inside of me. And so all acting was for me was an outlet, seriously. And I loved the outlet, and it was a beautiful outlet. And then I started taking on those characteristics of all these characters on myself.
Would you say, arguably, if it didn't happen, do you think you would have went down the athletics route?
I can't tell you, man.
Have you thought about that at all?
Sure. Have I thought about being the third string, you know, center fielder for the Yankees, making 6 figures doing nothing instead of busting my butt 8 shows a week for pennies? Yes, I've thought about it. And yes, I have thought about how much cooler it would have been. But, you know, at the end of the day, I love playing sports, and I still get to. And so I play whenever I can. But, again, man, it's like there's always going to be something. So I love my path. I love my route. It might be a little bit longer on some places, and it might be a little bit shorter in others than other people's stories. But, bro, this is who I am. And so it's like I could spend time calculating that and thinking through that. But why?
Right.
You know?
Right.
Because for me, it's like that just puts me again at a place feeling like I'm deficient.
Well, I think it's interesting that you chose, or it chose you, the arts.
Yeah.
Because one could say that you could have went the athletic route for the escapism. That's kind of that's really the
That's good.
That's the place that I'm you know, because who would have known?
Right.
It really could have went 50-50.
Sure. And it did. It was. I mean, when I was 16 years old, I got a phone call from North Carolina Theater, and they were like, "We want you to play the leading player in Pippin." And I was like, "Sick." And at that point, I was just getting ready to my all-star team had just finished, and we were getting ready to go to nationals and play, and I had to make a decision.
Yeah.
And it was a hard decision. And it was like, do you want to step into baseball and keep playing, go to nationals, do this, be the, you know, the center fielder of the state, and, you know, keep moving forward? I was on like a trajectory of like a 7-year plan with like the Mudcats and then 2 other teams and up to the Yankees.
Wow.
Because my dad knew somebody back, you know, Clyde King. My dad knew Clyde King, which was, I guess, one of the managers for the Yankees a long time ago.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that for sure, man, was like, that was a trajectory. But I had to make a decision, and I chose to play the leading player because I wanted to do it. I wanted it so bad.
Wow.
So I can't answer that honestly for you. You know what I'm saying? It's like, sure, you know, but I coulda, woulda, shoulda been a lot of things at this point. But I
sounds like the beginning to a song.
Right. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Hey.
Brett Paisley.
Right.
Little country, yeah. Coulda, woulda.
Could. Hey, baby. I coulda, woulda. Well, you coulda, woulda. You shoulda. You shoulda, coulda, and woulda. That's funny.
So, you know, influences, you say Skinner, Zeppelin to a certain degree. Who else, you know, from your mom's background? Anybody else?
Blood, sweat, and tears, baby. Okay. Come on.
Yeah.
My dad, Kenny G was like,
oh, boy.
I know. You can say that all you want, but, man, that dude can write a song. And he can play a saxophone. And my brother was a saxophone player. So Kenny G holds a really special place in my heart. I know people rip on him all the time, but they can rip on him as much as you want. That dude still makes $1 million every time he steps up.
Yeah, I think it has to do with the jazz community. You know,
he's an incredible musician, bro.
You know, they have their stigma towards things, but
sure, I get that. And because it's unconventional jazz,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Right. It's like pop jazz,
right?
Which means it's gonna make money. Like people always hate what they're not doing, and that's the same thing. I look at NFTs and I'm like, why? But that's because I don't understand them. But I know people who are making hundreds of thousands of dollars on them with their music, bro.
Yeah.
And I'm like, do I really want to do all that? No, but I should. That's the same thing. It's like, yeah, we don't. I'm a purist, so I want it to be how I've imagined it to be. I want it to be what I've worked for it to be. And when it's not, it's like it's not as sweet. So I get that. But and also, at some point, we've got to look ourselves in the mirror and say, it's not selling out. It's just validating what we have. And so, you know,
it's a great point,
right? Like we've all worked for pennies for a long time, and I mean, now and then you gotta get paid for what you're worth, and that's a hard thing. It's a hard line.
I'm just now starting to get there. Kind of like in my later 20s.
Sure.
It's starting to hit.
It's good.
And it doesn't hit until it hits. You know what I mean?
Amen, brother.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a good point, man.
How about other influences, bro? I love Boys to Men. I was a boy band freak when I was a kid.
Me too.
I just loved them.
NSYNC,
Backstreet Boys,
like
98 Degrees,
yeah.
Take Six.
I haven't heard Take Six in a long time.
Bro, those dudes can rip, dude. They can rip. But I mean, I love anything 80s hair metal just about. You can't go wrong for me with that. Sebastian Bach was a big influence on me.
Yeah.
Because I worked with him for so long.
Well, you're a big and I always remember you wearing the Guns N' Roses shirt to rehearsal.
Yeah, I love some Guns N' Roses.
Don't ask me how I remember that, but it was just one of those indelible things.
I love some GNR. I remember my mom and dad taking that record for me 4 or 5 times, bro. I think I bought that record like 6 times.
Well, Appetite?
Yeah. And I think 4 out of the 6 times that I bought it, my mom and dad like took the record. So
you got me,
bro. Like, why?
It's a great record.
It's a great record.
So good.
It's a great record, but it's just music.
Yeah.
And I think they were just worried about the influence on me. And but anyway, so yeah, but again, like I listen to everything. I'm not one of those people that pigeonholed myself into being like, oh, I'm just this or oh, I'm just that. I'll listen to anything.
Yeah.
I'll also tell you the truth about
that
any
was a
type
good
of
bro
music.
voice, man. That was really good.
Yeah, bro. Like, are you kidding me?
That's awesome.
Yeah, I got it, man.
It probably sounds like me.
No, you just sound like you, Jason. That's the thing. I can't sound like you. I can only sound like me, and you can only sound like you. But my bro voice is like because I don't fit into any of those categories. I love it. I love it all because it's all creative to me. It's all artistry, and I look at the artistry within it, and I go, "Whoa, this dude or this chick wrote an incredible song." The melodic structure is off for me because it doesn't fit with my what I'm listening to right now, what I'm hearing. But man, these lyrics hit hard. Or oh man, did you hear the intro to that song? What the heck is this tune? It's so cool. But who would think to do that, bro? Did you hear the bass line in that? Mm-hmm. Like, and I know you as a producer and as an artist as well. Like you listen to these things. Mm-hmm. So like
some things don't hit until years later, where you could really, look over something for you. I mean, that happened to me with Hendrix, happened to me with the Chili Peppers, happened to me with so many artists. And then you come back.
Incubus.
Yeah.
It hit me with Incubus. Yeah. It took one day I woke up and I was like, Brandon Boyd is a freaking genius.
Yeah.
I was like,
isn't it crazy how that happens?
Whoa. Like this dude and these guys, like they're doing something that's unheard of. Like it's just not. So yeah, I think, but again, artists don't do it for the recognition. They do it because that's what's inside them that's got to get out.
Yeah. And it changes.
It evolves.
You listen to a record and then something,
Well, somebody said it. I can't remember who it was. It'll come to me in a minute, but they were like, bro, you sold out. They were having this interview on like MTV, bro, and they were like, shoot, who was it?
Was it like a recent artist?
No, I mean it's a huge, infamous
Gene Simmons
rock band. I'm just trying to think. anyways, the story goes is this. They're sitting, they go, you sold out. This album came out, and he was like, they were so excited about it, the band was, and they're like, it's different than anything we've ever done. We're so stoked for it. And it was still very similar to their, metal rock and roll stuff.
Right.
But they were like, he goes, but you've sold out. How could you do this? How could you do your fans? You sold out. And one of the guys was like, yeah, we sold out every night for 20 years. And he like pushed the mic away. I was like,
well,
yes.
It might be Gene Simmons with Kiss, because
it might have been.
I read in his book, I think that was the same answer was, yeah, damn right we sold out. We sold out every night for however many years.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's the thing. It's like, why can't we evolve as an artist? Now, kids who are listening, I say this and I say this to you very lovingly from your Uncle John. There are artists who evolve for artistry, and there are artists who evolve for themselves. And there's a big difference for that for me, because it's like, bro, you're only doing this caricature of the artistry that you say that you're doing is only because you're gonna get paid. Right. That's it. And I'm not mad at anybody making a purse. I'm not mad at anybody making bank. I'm not mad at anybody who's got money. It's not about that. But what it is about is it authentic or not? And for me, that's where I come from. So if you're authentically really going as an artist and saying, let me see what I'm feeling. I started working with these other guys, and now we're writing this whole new thing, But
or exploration. I haven't tried this before. Let me try it out.
Or is this your ego? Right? Being like, well, this didn't hit, so I'm going to try this because I know that I'll make money doing this. So it's hard. It's a hard sell for me.
Yeah.
Where I'm like, oof, because authenticity, bro, like that for me, I can spot inauthenticity from a mile away. I don't know why. I hate the fact that I can, because once I see it, you can't unsee it. You know what I mean? So it's like, that's why I really love sitting with artists who are developing and really want to find their voice. Like all my students are people who are desperately trying to figure out what they're trying to do, because those are people I want to work with, because they want to work. They want to work and develop. They don't want to just like show up and be like, this is who I am. It's interesting.
Yeah, for sure. You still teaching these days?
Oh yeah,
that's awesome.
Always.
Well, I had a lesson from you way back, at least one. I don't know. It was in New York.
Yeah.
Again, 12, 13, whatever, somewhere around there.
Long time ago. Yeah. On 93rd Street.
I think it was Upper West Side.
Upper West Side, 93rd Central Park West.
Yeah. Wild, man.
Wild, dude.
Wild.
Another life.
For real.
It was another life.
So, speaking of New York, what was that transition like? How did that come about as far as, was it was time to leave, time to pack up, go,
Yikes. Loaded question, Jason. Loaded question. New York, man. 15 years, bro.
Yeah.
15 years. 12 on Broadway, 5 different shows. Yeah, it was time. It was time. My dad died in 2019, and 2019 was a really hard year for me. I broke up with a girl who I thought that I was going to be with for a very long time, and took a job that I was overqualified for, and yeah, man, I think when my dad died, it really, I had to step up. And so I had been sitting for a couple of years listening to what God was saying. And, a couple of years prior, I was going to go and, go to Bible college and, do the whole thing and become a worship pastor and maybe even a lead pastor and just keep moving in the faith. And circumstantially, one thing after another, I wasn't ready, and I just, I needed money. I had to take some jobs so that I could pay my bills, and so I think having the pandemic really gave me, along with everybody else, a chance to really assess our lives. and do it in a way that was like now or never, you know? And so my decision to come back down here was not really my decision. It was God's. You know, I wish that I could say, I am the gatekeeper, ha ha ha. But I'm not, dude. Like, you know, I don't make the decisions. And I was sitting, I had started a really intensive therapy for PTSD at the beginning of the pandemic. Like the week before the pandemic hit, I had just signed on with this new therapist, and I was like, got you. Like, thank you. Because the week after, she had no more slots. So I was like, I was sitting there, right? I was sitting there, and we just had this big session, and I was like sobbing and snotty and, you know, having this thing and just not knowing what to do. I was like, God, I don't know what to do. Just tell me what to do. And it's loud. And this doesn't ever happen, right? To me. It's like, it's as loud as possible. I heard, go home. And I was like, ooh, you know what I'm saying? I was like, is somebody in this apartment? He was like, go home. I'll never be able to bless you with more until you take care of what I've already given you. And like, I touched whatever was in front of me. I was like, okay. What does that mean? I was like, I don't get it. And then I remembered that we had this farm that my grandmother had left for me, and that it had been sitting vacant for about 3 years since she died. And I go, oh, for me to secure my inheritance, I got to go take care of it. And so I went home alone with my dog, and I started working. And I put, you know, I remodeled some of the house. I fixed up the house. I fixed up the grounds. I farmed the grounds. I put my hands in the dirt, and made a lot of mistakes. Farming's really difficult, but I learned a lot. And what's funny is like each new thing that I learned is its own lesson. Each new thing, you know, like if you don't pull the weeds out of your garden's going to be overgrown with weeds. You know, if you don't,
parables almost,
bro, like
in a tangible.
If you don't tend to what you're supposed to tend to, it piles up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? If you don't take care of the things on the front end, you create more work for yourself or other people on the back end. Things like this that I knew, that I understood, but I didn't fully grasp as an adult. And I didn't fully grasp that, like, wow, it's a chain reaction, so it affects everything else. So I started getting my head and my heart right, and you know, as hard as it's been, as hard and as wild as it's been to step away from something that I've known for 26 years. I've been an actor for 26 years. People retire from jobs after that, you know, and I've been honored and blessed to work with incredible people on huge stages. And if social media was a thing back when I was a lead on Broadway at 19, bro, I don't know where I would be. Probably dead at this point. So, like, again, all things work together. And here I am standing, a living testament of God's grace. So I don't know what the next chapter holds, but I'm excited for it. So I've really been able to be here and be focused on what's my ministry, which is called Revival Sessions.
Yeah.
And it's a weekly reminder that God's bigger than your situation, no matter what it is.
What was the inspiration behind starting that? Was it just, you know, I mean, beyond the obvious?
Yeah. Well, I was in New York City, working on Broadway, and the community of Christians in New York City on Broadway that are real Christians are very few and far between. And to be honest, you know, if we're going to look at something under a microscope, I wasn't living in full transparency of how I should have been living at that point either. And so being here allowed me to see all those things. You know what I'm saying? And see the hypocrisy and see all that. And I keep saying this, the hypocrisy in the church is polarizing. So I don't want to be the hypocrite that does that, because it's isolating. It isolates people, and Jesus wasn't somebody who isolated people. So I wanted to create a space where it wasn't about where you're from, where you're at, where you've been, how much money you can give to the ministry, what color's your skin, who's your mama, who's your daddy, you know, what job you have. I didn't want to do any of that stuff. What you actually believe.
Right.
I wanted you to come as you were, period.
Right.
And if you need prayer, we'll pray for you. If you need love, we'll hug you. If you need anything, we got you. That's what it's about. And so it goes above and beyond what a denomination would be. It goes above and beyond what four walls of a building could ever do for anybody. And it shows you that God's supposed to meet you where you're at. And God's supposed to meet the people where they are. Not have the people come to him. Go to the people.
Yeah.
And so that's what I wanted revival sessions to be. I wanted it to be a weekly reminder that God's bigger than everything you got. Because guess what? None of us are perfect. Because the perfect one died. None of us are above sin. Everybody will sin. No matter what. It's just a thing. And if you think of it in like the cold hard facts, it's like, oh, this is very negative, but it's not.
Yeah,
it's just truth. And that's where I think we should start leading from, rather than a bottom line or what our denomination says or how we're going to judge you for doing this. And I've seen a lot of that. And you know, even what's even more interesting for me is applying for churches to be on staff. Oh, but transparency. You get full transparency of that person and those staff members in that church with how they treat you on the back end. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So it's like, you know, whether or not they say you're qualified or not, or whether or not they say that, you know, we're going in a different direction, whatever they're going to say, it's like, but where's Jesus? I asked somebody, one of my mentors a long time ago, I said, hey man, what do we do when we have church hurt? You know, what do we do when somebody at church, a pastor or a friend or somebody has hurt us? You know what I'm saying? And like, how do we go about that when we think they should be doing it different or whatever? Like, how do we go about that? And his answer made me, I've never wanted to box a preacher more. His answer made me want to glove up and get in the ring with him immediately. Because he goes, if Jesus was at the center, church hurt wouldn't exist. That's so heavy.
Yeah.
That's so heavy, yeah, because if Jesus is at the center of it, you know, there's this Israel and Newbury, Jesus at the center of it all. Like if he really was at the center of everything in our lives, all of these things that we create, they wouldn't exist. So again, it's like, if we can all be honest that the hypocrisy is in all of us.
Yeah.
Because we're only one beggar showing another beggar where the bread is. If we can admit finally that the hypocrisy is in all of us and we're all not impervious to sin, we're all going to do it, then we can start getting somewhere, because then we can start helping each other, being like, oh yeah, I deal with that too. What? I had no idea you too. You too? Whoa. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then you're not so alone. Because I know people who beat themselves up. I know people who sit in a room and do things to themselves because they're broken, right? But then other people condemn them for their brokenness, and then they have nowhere to go because they might not know Jesus the way that other people do. So it's It's a hard thing. It's a hard line for me because I've seen a lot of isolation in the church. And that's why I started Revival Sessions. I wanted there to be a place where everybody can come and everybody can pray and everybody can receive prayer, because nobody is above prayer. And nobody has sinned too much where they can't receive prayer. Nobody.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think anybody especially in the entertainment industry, you know, on stage, whatever. For me personally, you know, the church hurt. I've dealt with it.
Sure.
You know, I'm sure you have.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's awesome, man. It's great.
Well, it's tough. Like it's not easy, right?
No.
And it wasn't supposed to be, but we want it to be because Instagram shows us that it could be.
Right.
Because when we start looking and we start glorifying all of these images,
right,
we romanticize the image of something. We romanticize the idea of what it could be. And then like that's what we start lusting for subconsciously. Mm-hmm. It's not like this like foaming at the mouth, you know, kind of thing, but it is internally.
Yeah.
Because internally we're doing stuff and denying God every step of the way. See, I'm in a season now of being like, God, I don't know what you want me to do, but I'm going to start saying yes to the doors that you open, because we pray for open doors and God opens windows and we slam the windows waiting for the bigger door. When God just wants us to make a move, you know, one step of faith after one step of obedience. Everybody asks me like, how you doing? I'm like, bro, I'm just putting one step in front of the other. That's all I can do right now. But that one step in front of the other is one step of faith after one step of obedience, after one step of faith, after one step of obedience. And those steps, it feels like mud. They're slow steps, bro. And I love running.
Yeah.
And so it's not this one isn't fast. And this one isn't going to be cut and dry. It's something that is a calling, and it's something that is developed. And you have to deny yourself a lot of things that used to soothe you a lot. And bro, I'm going to tell you, it's really difficult. You know, it's really difficult for any person. But including somebody who's been doing it for a long time, that's been their coping mechanism. So, God's good, and I'm just thankful that I'm not dead at this point, and that I can keep moving forward from here.
It's huge, man. It's huge. I'll digress for a second, and you know, going back to kind of your incredible career on Broadway and whatnot. Love to just dive into like your history with the audition process.
Sure.
For anybody who's listening.
Sure.
Who's, you know, in the industry.
Yeah.
The audition process, and then also just performance anxiety, you know, just kind of like those, you know.
Oh, just the light subjects of auditioning and performance anxiety.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, what do you want to know?
No, I was just curious. I mean, to hear from your standpoint, maybe some hurdles that you had to jump over, or maybe you didn't have to jump over them. They were just natural, you know, as a teacher, because you've taught as well. Well,
again, anxiety sucks. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody, if they're honest with themselves, suffers from some type of anxiety when it comes to other people judging them, right? And like that's what auditions are. And so, yeah, again, I like to strip it back to the raw truth of it all. I've heard many casting directors be like, we're just the guys and girls behind the desk, and we just want you, we're cheering you on. We want you to be the best. But I've also been the reader in the room where they're like, oh my God, I cannot believe this person is coming in. They absolutely are terrible. This is going to be the longest 5 minutes of our lives.
Yeah.
So again, what I say is this: the best you is the best thing you can put forward. Be prepared, be discerning, be deliberate. Walk in, because casting is stupid. They don't know what they want.
Right.
They think that they do, but they don't. So when you walk in, you show them what they want, because you're the only thing that can be seen. Right? That doesn't mean do backflips in a dance call. That's not what that means. What that means is do your work. Be prepared when you show up. Have it memorized. I'm the worst at this. I hate memorizing scripts because it makes me feel like I'm like in a box. But kids, memorize your scripts. Memorize your songs, you know? If I ever step back into another audition room, I will be fully memorized. Fully.
Yeah.
Because it's preparation.
Yeah.
Because then the anxiety really isn't there. You have a little bit of it, but if you're prepared, if you can say those words backwards and forwards, and you can act it left, right, and center, you know the intention behind each word, you know the intention behind each moment, you've written it out, you've scored it, and you've done your homework, and you've rehearsed that song until you're blue in the face, and you have every note and you have every word and you're ready to go, and you've formulated your own character. What are they going to say?
Right.
You know what? You just weren't what we were looking for.
Okay.
Great. I was prepared.
Yeah.
They're like, but you had a really great audition. Thank you very much. That's the best thing that I'm looking for is, you know what? It's not this time, but wow. Like, I saw something I've never seen you do before. That for me is the biggest takeaway. So just be prepared with auditions.
That's great.
I had an acting coach one time where she was like, I was like, what do I do when I'm nervous, bro? I was like, I'm shaking. My knees are quivering. I've got clammy hands. She goes, what I like to do is I like to take all those nerves. You know, there's always like a wastebasket right outside of the room. I like to like take all those nerves, bundle them up, put them in a ball, and just leave them in that wastebasket. And I like to say, thank you, nerves, for showing up, but I will pick you up when I come back out. And bro, I remember one day I was like, I'm actually about to do this. I'm actually about to do this. And so I started balling them up, and I put them in the wastebasket, and I turned around, and one of my boys there was like, bro, what are you doing? I was like, I just threw my nerves away. And he looked at me and he goes, what are you smoking? And are you good? I was like, I'm going to pick those back up when I come back out of that room. I'll tell you, I had a kick butt audition. But again, it was like, everybody has their own thing. That was not for me. A beautiful sentiment, great idea, gets you out of your comfort zone, makes you think about something different. Right. And that's all you need with nerves, is just to move them along. Right. Because you get stuck in a thing of, what if I do this? What if I mess up? What if they don't like me? What if? And there's bad what ifs and good what ifs. There's still what ifs. They're bad what ifs and good what ifs, but they are still what ifs. So that's the point. It's like the bad what ifs is like, what if I mess up? What if they don't like me? The good what ifs is like, what if I get it and I can make this money? What if I get it and I can have job security? What if I get it and I can do this? What if I get it and this leads me to another job in my career? They're all what ifs. You don't have it yet. When you have it, daydream all you want. But until you can get there, go back to the work. Go back to the character. Do the character analysis. Keep going over the character analysis backwards and forwards, backwards and forwards. These are the words. These are the words. So that's my audition tip. Performance tip is this: ride it till the wheels fall off. Right. Show up every day and warm up and warm down. That's it. Warm up and warm down, and show up every day and ride it till the wheels fall off. Don't ever, in my presence, and this is a thing, don't ever in my presence let me catch you on stage slacking off. I think it's the most disrespectful thing. And I used to do it as a kid all of the time. We're having fun. It's a good time, blah, blah, blah. But if you're a professional and you're not doing a high school play, you know what I'm saying? And you're getting paid money to do a job, a J-O-B, do your job. Just because it's the last performance doesn't mean you can start making people laugh and throw confetti and do different blocking and all this stuff. No, 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 no. Do your job, because your first job is the contract you signed. I heard people all the time in New York be like, I got to come in on Thursday and Friday and rehearse. Yeah, because there are other people who need rehearsal, and you're part of the show, are you not?
Right.
Bro, what else do you have to do?
Yeah, that's what you signed up for.
Like, that's your contract. If you don't like the contract, change the contract or don't accept it. But, you know, everybody wants a handout for no work. That's what they want. I just want to do my job. So that's my biggest thing, is just like, do your job. But performance is always that. Opening night's always the most amped up, because you just have adrenaline rolling. So learning meditation is really good. I have a lot of friends who use a lot of meditation and meditative structures for their stuff. I love good breathing exercises. But other than that, man, preparation is the biggest, I think it's the biggest crutch for a lot of people, because they feel like they want to be prepared but not over prepared, right? But it's like, why? Why don't you want to be over prepared? Why don't you want to think 20,000 feet above? Why don't you want to think, you know, for the next person and go outside of the box and really this company, whether you're doing a film, you're doing a musical or a play or a podcast, this company, what we're trying to do is we're trying to better the whole.
Yeah.
And if you're going to be a thorn in the hole, trust me, people are going to get annoyed by you.
Yeah.
Because you're a thorn. And that's just because your attitude sucks. So it's like, check your attitude, check your thought process, and walk into that building, no matter what it is, where you're going, with a clear head and an open heart, ready to go. Because that's what it's about. I mean, for me, when you're telling stories, if you're not open, people see it. And it takes away from the story. And if you're not part of the whole, then you're just a thorn. I honestly, that's it. I've seen huge Oscar, Tony, Emmy-winning celebrities, Grammy-winning celebrities, right? Act like the lowest person in the room. I've also seen them act like crap to other people.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference in my respect for each one of those people. Light years difference in respect. Whether or not my respect means anything to them, I don't lose sleep over that. But at the end of the day, I can look at somebody who will take the time to speak to somebody else, you know, rather than the other person who thinks they're too cool for school because they have this on their resume. Right. Do you see what I'm saying?
Right.
So for me, it's all about what you're willing to do. Are you willing to go outside of your comfort zone? And that shows in your performance. That shows in your performance. It really does, I think.
I have nothing to add on those.
I think that's all that I can. I mean,
that's great.
Really, that's all I can add for like young performers. Is like just do the work, y'all. Like, it's not like you don't go to like, and especially on Broadway, like, you don't go to Broadway to become famous.
Yeah,
you don't.
Yeah.
There's only one Hamilton. There was only one Les Mis. There is only one Phantom. There will only be one Jesus Christ Superstar. There is only one Wicked. Like, these shows there's only one. So, and you just being part of that doesn't mean that you're going to be Ariana Grande. But people, I mean, like, people just look at this and they want it so bad because we're wired to to foam at the mouth and to fight for that, which is just ludicrous to me. That's all.
The human condition.
Sure. Yeah.
Yeah.
Perception perception is always the reality, somebody told me.
Yeah.
In the industry, perception is always the reality.
You don't like the reality, change your perception, perhaps.
If you don't like the reality, change the perception. Just change yourself.
Yeah.
I mean, like, that's it. It's like, people are always like, well, what can I do? What can I do? I don't know, but you can start somewhere. We're too afraid to start, you know?
Yeah.
Looking at the hole is too big.
Starting that's a whole other topic, but that's 90%, I think, getting the ball rolling.
Sure.
In any endeavor.
And finishing strong.
Yeah.
Finishing really strong. Because at the end of the day, when you give up on things like that quick, you never really tried. Yeah.
That's big.
Yeah. It's true.
It's true. Yeah.
It's really true. Because, like, I mean, yeah. I don't really know what else to say about it. It's like kind of like mic drop after it, because it's a one-liner, but it's the truth, because the perception that somebody else has on us, we have no control over, but we do.
It's a paradox.
Right.
Yeah.
And the thing is like, if we're living, for me, so like if I'm living in alignment with what I believe, with my faith, I don't really care what you think about me. Because you might not believe the same thing I believe. That's okay. But if we can't have a conversation about what you believe and what I believe, I don't have to encourage you to believe what I believe. But if you ask me and I tell you, and then you defend what you believe, I will listen to you. But I'm never sitting here defending what I believe to somebody, because it's just what I believe. And if you're losing sleep over that, that's your problem, not mine.
Right.
So for me, I'm like, all right, I love you and I hear you. It's the biggest thing that we've been facing in our country in the past 2 years, man. I mean, longer than that, because of elections and stuff like that. But especially in the past 2 years with these pandemics and with the race war that's going on right now, and it's a lot. It's a lot. And people are uneasy and they don't know what to say. They feel like they're choked up. They don't feel like they have a voice, and it's really detrimental to somebody's health. It really is. When you feel like you can't say what actually you're thinking or what you're feeling because everybody tells you it's wrong. It's not. That's what you think. That's what you feel. Every single Broadway show that I've ever done, the first people that I talk to in the building are the stagehands, the janitors, and the musicians. That's it. I don't care about the actors. I love them. I love them to death. But I've just been in a room with them for the past 4 weeks.
Yeah.
I don't know these people. These people come here before I get there. The stagehands, the janitors, and the musicians. These people get here before me. They clean up after me, and they stay after I'm gone. These people make my show run. So for me, they're the most important people in that building. The actors, I love them. They're my family. Great. It's awesome. But they're also my colleagues. I work with them. I'm not paid to like you. I'm paid to work with you. That's period. That's a fact. And we get that twisted because we're like, it's a family and I love you. And we're acting together. It's going to be just like so great. But at the end of the day, you're not tucking me in at night. You're not paying my bills and you're not making me food every day. So, I'm going home. Bye. I'm the first one to get to the theater. I'm the first one to get to the theater. First one to leave the theater. I'm out. Yeah, right. I'm done. I don't need to stick around any longer. I love you guys. I'm out. But I say that thing, like the first thing I do when I get to theaters is talk to all those people, is because those people take care of me. And I always would go, to the orchestra pit, and I would always be like, rock it out, y'all, like have a great show. And I remember I knew people would come up to me on the street in New York, be like, John, what's up, man? I'd be like, hey, bro, what's going on? What's going on, girl? How are you? How's life? Blah, blah, blah. People are like, you know everybody. I'm like, I don't. I don't. But all of those are musicians. Yeah. And all of those musicians sub in at other Broadway shows. So what do I want them to say about John Greene when somebody's like, it's between this guy and this guy, you know, and this person's got a job. They say, oh, well, this guy, I don't even know who he is, but John Greene used to come to, I don't really know him very well, but he used to come down and say something to the band he made sure that he came down and said something to the band every show. I just like I like his style. So for me, it's like, I would much rather people love the way that I made them feel, you know what I'm saying, than anything else, because like we leave two things behind when we die: our name, our family name, and how we made people feel.
That's it.
Our word. Was your word your bond? So those two things for me, I was like, whoa, yeah. Like, and these things come natural to me. Some people have to really work for this but these things come naturally to me. I'm a people person like that. So, but I love that about people being able to just come in and say, oh, well, this is somebody who doesn't normally get recognition, but let me actually just take a second, just a second, to say hi or to learn something about their life. Oh, they have a kid, so every time I see him, hey, how's your son? He good? Great. It takes 2 minutes. You know, that's those 2 minutes that you're spending scrolling through this or scrolling through that. Like, it takes 2 minutes.
Yeah, I think a lot of that was in a book. I don't know if you read it at one point, How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Never read it. Sounds good.
I think it's Dale Carnegie or Stephen Covey or one of those guys. It was Dale Carnegie. Nice. But yeah, my dad's big on that quote. People forget what you say, people forget what you did, but they'll never forget how they made you feel.
Right.
It's huge.
It is.
You make me feel good, man.
You make me feel good too, Jason.
Best and worst stage experiences for you.
Oh, man.
If you had one, I mean, out of thousands, right?
Sure.
One that really sticks out is this was the apex for me. This was it. This was, take me, I'm done. And then just a total disaster. I ask a lot of people this question because it always prompts funny.
There are a couple, but I think when I was 19, I played Riff on Broadway in West Side Story. Arthur Lawrence, who's the guy who wrote the show, the script, was the director. Stephen Sondheim, who wrote God Rest His Soul.
Yeah. Recently.
Yeah.
Right.
That was a hard one. But Stephen Sondheim was there, and I think I just was. The show starts off, and the curtain comes up, and I'm the first thing that you see. And you have to move off of a wall unit and then walk in dead silence straight down the stage. And I just remember, and then I have to survey the whole place. Dead silence. You can hear a pin drop. The whole thing. Just the whole thing. Just looking. No movement. Just ahead. And a snap. And the jets.
Wow.
And for me, that moment, I just remember that moment being so beautiful. It felt like it was like a culmination of all the work that I had done for, all of those years, all the hard nights and the pain and the therapy of just bearing my soul on stage and leaving it there. All that kind of felt encompassing. But I remember getting off stage that night, that first night, and spoiler alert, I died at the end of Act 1. So I was dead, and I'm sitting there with my shirt off, and I'm looking in the mirror, and I called my mom, and she goes, "Oh, tell me everything. How was it? Oh, I gotta know." And I just go, "Was that it?" She goes, "What do you mean?" I said, "I thought I'd feel more. Like I've accomplished that dream. I'm here." And I didn't think like there should be confetti cannons and a freaking like parade for me, but I thought I would feel fulfilled. And I wasn't. I was 19. I'd gotten everything that I had dreamed of, and it wasn't enough. And then I spent all of these years chasing that dream. And so it's interesting to see. And I've had so many beautiful moments, but that moment for me was like both the best and worst moment of my life.
Wow.
Yeah. And a lot of stuff happened during West Side Story, and you know, a lot of stuff has happened to me throughout my life. But one of my favorite, funniest memories. So that's a little heavy. That's a heavy.
Dude, that's
a heavy moment. That's a heavy moment.
That is. I'm just so glad we got that on tape. Anyway,
you see, I'm trying to move it along.
No. Seriously, I mean, that was
such a heavy moment.
I'm just glad we got that. That's awesome.
But yeah, it's real.
I mean that in respect, because obviously, you know, for you to say it is the best and the worst, that's deep.
Yeah, it was hard, and I've still been, you know, analyzing that for years. But yeah. I did this show off Broadway, called Shadows. Oh man, so good. Me and this girl Janine are the only two actors who have lines and sing. And she's married to somebody else, and I'm married to somebody else. And the whole thing about the show is that like we meet in her grandparents' like sex den where they used to have affairs with. Yeah, right. So she's coming back. She's trying to sell the apartment, and I'm her realtor, and so all this stuff. So, but then the ghosts, the shadows, right, are all these like prima ballerinas from like ABT, American Ballet Theater, and like these just incredible dancers. And so they're all these shadows, right? And there's this one number where like all this stuff starts happening to me, and I'm asleep, and then like the wall starts shaking, books flying off the shelves, books are flying at me, and I open the door and nobody's there, and then I shut the door and there's another ding dong, and I open the door and nobody's there, and I shut the door again, and I'm like, what's going on? And then the next scene, my friend Janine, she's the one who comes in, and she's my love interest and all that stuff, blah blah blah. And I'm like, you never believe what just happened, and and so. It's like a Saturday night. The house is full. And we're going, man. Like I'm going at it. They're throwing books at me. I'm dodging stuff. I'm like, I'm scared for my life. I go to the door. I open the door, and Janine is standing in the door. And I look at her and I go, "You're not real!" and slam the door and continue the scene. And then next she comes in when she's supposed to. Bro.
Wow.
Because I was like, how am I going to save this?
Yeah.
She's not supposed to be here in any way, shape, or form. And I just remember her coming in and looking at me. She's already laughing. And this is like an intimate moment.
Right.
And it's like intense and intimate. And she's just dead laughing. And I'm sitting there being like, oh my goodness. So I get off stage, and the director comes up to me and he goes, "You're not real?" I go, Janine was standing in the doorway. He goes, "What?" And I was like, "Yeah, man." He goes, I said, "You didn't see her?" He goes, "No, I just heard you say something." I said, "Oh." She was standing in the door. She comes out. She's like, John, I am so sorry. I skipped a cue. I was just waiting there and nobody was backstage telling me not to be there. She was like, I'm so sorry. I was like, it's hysterical. At this point, I'm like, wow, this is live theater. And that is live theater. Yeah. That's how it happens. But bro, that was one of the stupidest, funniest moments I ever remember. And then I before, so the pandemic happened, and I was in a show called Company, which is Stephen Sondheim's show as well, and I was a standby for 5 roles: the dance captain, the fight captain, and the equity deputy. I was busy, and yeah,
that's a lot.
And on Monday, before the pandemic shut everything down on Thursday in March of 2020, Monday morning at about noon, I get a phone call, and the stage manager's like, "You're on." I was like, I haven't had a put in. I don't have a costume. I don't have a haircut. What?" And so I came in at noon on a Monday for a 7 p.m. curtain. When they asked me what I wanted to eat, I looked at them and laughed.
Yeah.
They were like, we're going to get you something to eat. What do you want to eat so it can be here so you can stay so you don't have to go home? I said, yo, I have to go walk my dog before the show. I can't just like sit around. So I do that show. I forget that this role has to make out with Patti LuPone during one of the scenes. You know who Patti LuPone is, don't you? So this is the funniest thing. I'm sitting up here and they're like, John, go. This you gotta go through that door. You have to go through that door. I was like, I don't know what happens on the other side of that door. They're like, get ready. I walk through the door. Patty's lying on her back on the table, which is her blocking. And she comes in and she forgot too, because she looks at me and goes, and grabbed me and kissed me. And I swear to God, bro, it was so funny. It was a surreal moment where I was like, wow. Yeah, I just made out with Patti LuPone, and I also like, this is a what am I doing? Like, what is going on? It was wild, man. It's wild. It's like getting, you know, thrown out of a 50-story building with no parachute, but you still bring it in for a landing. And we got through it, and I got through it, and I did 2 shows, and it was great. And I miss the show a lot, but they're up and running and they're crushing it. But man, it was wild. That was a surreal moment for me.
Those are good, man.
Those are some fun things to think about, I guess. Yeah,
real good. You know, we really hit a lot of stuff here. I guess the one thing we didn't touch on is like your songs and your songwriting process.
Sure.
I was just kind of curious to get into that, and you know, just see what that's about.
Jag Records, baby.
Jag Records.
Yeah, man. I mean, what do you want to know?
What's your process? Like, is it, and that's a vague question, but like, for example, you know, usually you could be a melody guy first and then put the lyrics to the melody, or
sure.
You know.
I do everything together most of the time.
Okay.
If I end up, because I write so much, it's like if I come up with any type of poetry on the side, it usually is not something that would fit into a song necessarily. It's more like free flow, you know?
Yeah.
So I end up, if I find a haunting melody, I'll write immediately, but it has to spark something for me to write. So I can't, I mean, I can write willy-nilly, and I can write, you know, if I have to, but I don't, I try not to. I like to, it's more sacred to me. So,
is it piano or guitar? Is it just what you're feeling? I mean, you know, whatever.
Sky's the limit.
Yeah.
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 Give me a sitar.
You start on the piano first, right? Yeah. Sitars are cool, man.
I started on the recorder, really, the harmonica, to tell you the truth. But then I graduated. You know, yeah, the piano was my first instrument. besides my voice. And then I'm self-taught on the guitar, so I'm still learning things on the guitar. I'm still learning things on the piano, to tell you the truth.
Yeah.
And that's what's cool. Like, and there are things that I'm very inefficient at on the piano, and not very good at on the guitar either. But again, I do what works for me, and people have seemed to like some of the music, and it's just real. I write really real music, raw, real music, and I don't really care if it doesn't fit into your genre box.
Right.
I always say break the mold. You know what I'm saying? I always say, like, screw it. And that's why I've run into a lot of problems with record labels. Is they're like, oh yeah, but what is it? I'm like, no, you don't understand. It's like a cross-pollination between X, Y, and Z. And it hasn't been done yet. And they're like, a little risky. Yeah, but like, yeah, okay. But so was Queen.
Yeah.
So
I was just gonna say,
I mean,
Queen.
like
Yeah.
that. And you know, Freddie's vocals, of course, are a huge influence on me. But their artistry, if you sit and you listen, I mean, these dudes are classically trained, and they're incredible musicians. Incredible musicians, and only because they had really great producers and the time to flesh out everything in a studio, as big of a studio as it was, they had all this time. So
it's a different era, man.
It's
totally
different era.
Well,
It's
you know,
different era.
and I was gonna when we were talking about auditioning and performing and all that, there was one point that you made that I wanted to bring up regarding now and the difference. I think it had to do with social media, like what would have happened 10, 15 years. So my question is, the fame aspect, right? So that's a trend, right? Chasing Broadway for fame, the whole thing.
Sure.
Now, how much more has this is a redundant question, but I'm going to tee it up for you. How much more has that become an epidemic for young performers now, doing with, I mean, TikTok and like, it's just,
well, you have to understand, TikTok is what, 60 seconds in all? The longest TikTok you can do is 60 seconds?
I think it's 3 minutes now, but whatever.
Whatever.
Yeah.
8 shows a week. Can you do that 8 shows a week? Just like that, 8 shows a week?
It's a whole different skill set.
Can you? That's my question.
Right.
Can you do it healthfully 8 shows a week, 365 days a year, with 2 weeks of vacation? Can you do it?
It's a different bar.
It's a different bar.
Different bar.
But now that's the thing. Now actors are trying to set the bar lower. Instead of 8 shows, let's only do 6. Why? We're working too hard. That's the job. It's like we want to evolve because we want it to be better working conditions for us. But really what we want to do is we want to make the job easier and still get paid the same amount of money. So we want to do less work for the same amount when it doesn't balance out that way. I definitely think that actors should be taken care of, and I definitely think that they should be compensated. But there's an ego issue for me. So it's like, I think that the industry sets people up for failure. I think that when you take a 16-year-old kid and you say, here is a Broadway contract for a leading role that has to sing the hardest songs on Broadway, 8 shows a week, 360, even if you have to do 6 shows a week, 6 shows a week, 365 days a year. A 17-year-old kid can't do that unless they've been trained and they have the discipline and have done shows up to this point. I don't know any kid that runs the circuit that I ran when I was a teenager. Because I did 4 shows a year, 5 shows a year. I did 3 main stage, 1 school, Kids on Broadway, and sometimes A Christmas Carol. And in between all of those productions, I was still taking ballet class twice a week. I was still in 2 voice lessons a week from 2 different voice teachers. I was still in acting class when they had people come in. I did all of these extra workshops, and my parents allowed me to do that. Like they did all of that, and because I did commercials when I was a kid, those commercials paid for it. A lot of the stuff, but. So I don't know. It's a convoluted question, Jason, because it's hard. I don't want to come across as like the old guy who's jaded by, because I'm not. But what I am is I'm interested in why you feel as if it's not you specifically, but why the new common thread is let's just jump in and do all this willy-nilly. It feels like you're setting everybody up for failure. Does that make sense?
Yeah, well, I feel like on a larger scale, it might be a cultural thing. Because if the culture is being entertained by it and it's feeding that machine, and that's where the attention is, that's a whole other discussion. Now, which leads to the next question, which is, where is Broadway going? Because now we've had the pandemic.
Yeah, I think Broadway's going to 4D. So about 10 years ago, they did something called Broadway 4D, where they took like 32 different shows. And they took the best number from each one of those shows.
Okay. And
they filmed them in a 4D setting. And they got celebrities to come in, Broadway stars to come in, ensembles to dance and all this stuff. It's huge contracts, right? And they filmed the whole thing. And then they were going to release it and play it like 6 times a day. Right? But 6 times a day it's a 4-person ticket, which means 2 adults, 2 children, right? If not, it's at least a 3-person ticket, 2 adults and 1 child. So at $80 a pop, you know what I'm saying? In a 1,200 seat house, so 1,200 times 80 times 6,
$96K or something like that
a day,
right?
A day. And how many actors do they have to pay that show?
There you go.
Because they already paid them,
right? Yeah.
So that's what we're looking at here. We're looking at the Netflix version of it. We're looking at the Hulu and the Discovery and the thing. That's what these shows are doing. They're all recording their shows live, and doing overdubs and everything else. So but they're recording it live on a stage as if it's theatrical production, and then they're releasing it for people who. And they're saying they're releasing it for people who can't get to the theater. And I respect that. But also it's like, even people who can come to the theater, they can't freaking afford it anymore. $1,000 a ticket? What is going on here? Yeah. Like, that's ridiculous. And so I don't know. I'm of a different breed when it comes to those kind of things. But I think it's not my place to solve these issues.
Right.
I think they're monumental issues, and I think they are societal issues, just like you were saying. And again, I don't have the answers to them. And even if I did, I don't really think anybody would listen. So
it's amazing how it's amazing how much things have changed within 15 years.
Oh yeah.
Yep. Because I went to high school with a Verizon flip phone, and nobody really had iPhones. Maybe 8, maybe 10% of the population in the school had an iPhone.
Sure.
1 or whatever.
Yeah.
And
they thought they were cool. I had my chocolate. You remember that? The old chocolate. Yeah. It was like a bro, I was that and my BlackBerry. I loved that BlackBerry, man. Sorry, go ahead.
No, but that's the thing is, like, at least I feel like I was born in '94, so kind of the tail end of Gen Y.
Same.
That was That was, for me, it was just when I was in high school. It's still, YouTube was just coming out, and it was out for a few years, but there was nothing monetized. There was nothing like that.
Sure.
So it was just a different time.
Yeah.
Just like anybody else,
Napster it was around then.
Right.
It took 2 days to download one video.
Right. Right. So I don't know. It's just amazing how it's changed so much, where now these kids it feels like they're coming out of the womb with a tablet,
That's a whole other conversation, because I've seen parents on subways shut their kids up by handing them the tablet.
Right.
And it's like, and again, this is nothing against parents who use technology to kind of pacify their kids, because I've heard some fathers tell me, like, bro, and you don't even know. He goes, it is a golden ticket. And he was like, it literally, it's life or death. And sometimes he's like, I know I'm a bad parent, but I gotta shut the kid up, because I've gotta, we want to eat food and we want to be able to have a life. And so for me, again, that is like, I'm not a dad. I've got a dog, and he doesn't talk back. So it's better, right, for me at this point. But I would think if we start out like we can hold out, that would be a better thing. But we don't, because we always try to just adjust on the fly.
Right.
And adjusting on the fly,
it becomes a norm.
Yeah, well, it's easy.
Yeah.
It's easy. And if it's easy, it's quick and it's easy. People want to make a quick buck. They don't want to develop. People want to make a quick album. They don't want to develop. You know what I'm saying? I've talked to thousands of producers that are like, yeah, you have great stuff. Thank you for sending it to me after I've asked you for your music. They've asked me for music, so I've sent it to them. They're like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for sending it to me. So here's how much it is each song. And I'm like, why are we having this discussion? You asked me to send me my music because you were talking about wanting to produce me. But now you're telling me you want to produce me by me paying you to produce me? I didn't ask you to produce me. You asked me for my music. So why are we having this conversation? When I got to LA, the first thing I did, I was at church, and a guy came up to me and he was like, what's up, dude? You look like a cool guy. I was like, I am. My name's John. What's up? You look like a cool guy. He's like, my name's Adam. I was, nice to meet you, bro. I go, what do you do? He goes, I'm a drummer. He goes, what do you do? I go, I'm an actor and a songwriter. He goes, amazing. Let's get together and jam. I go, sick. He goes, okay, it's $300 an hour. I go, I'm sorry? He goes, yeah. I go, to jam.
That's wild.
Is 300. I go, who have you played for? He goes, what do you mean? I go, well, like, you obviously must be really good if you're charging people to jam with you after you've asked them to jam. You're not paying any money for this studio? You're not paying me for my time? This is right after I had just left Broadway, playing riff on Broadway. And I was sitting there being like, what is happening? So for me, there's a monumental flaw, especially in our industry. It's just a monumental flaw.
I haven't heard of that one before. That's a whole other...
That was in 2011, bro.
That...
2011.
I don't even think I've ever imagined that.
It made me laugh. It was my favorite conversation.
That's incredible.
I go, no. It's like, thank you so much.
I mean, I can see it from the producing side because, trying to solicitate services, everybody's grinding. I get it. And producers, that's so.
But if you ask me for my music with nothing else, with no other connotation, no other word, you're like, hey man, I want to work with you. Send me some of your stuff so I can take a look to figure out what we're going to do together.
Right.
And then you tell me how much your rate is after I've already sent it, after I feel like we're going to develop together, like we're going to do something together. You'll make your money, but how do you want to make? I didn't seek you out. You sought me. So if you're seeking me for my efforts, not yours.
Does that make sense? So again, there's a monumental flaw. I get it, and everybody should get paid. This is not me saying like, oh, blah, 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 people didn't do things for free, because I pay for everything that I've done. But the bottom line is, if you're going to come to me with something, and this is just food for thought, if you're going to come to me, if I'm going to ask you for a service, if I'm going to say, yo, I believe in you, I really like your style, I want to see where you go, I want to work with you, send me some of your stuff, and let's figure out a song we can do together. If I said that to you, nowhere in that means that you're paying a cent for me to do that.
Right.
Nowhere. As a producer, this is for Jag Records. If I'm asking you, seeking out your advice, your talent, and your time, nowhere in that says you're paying for anything. Because I'm the producer. Sure, great. I'm going to have to pay a lot of money to produce you, to other people as well, to make sure that it's the best product so we can push it out. But I'm willing to do that because I believe in the product that we're going to do. So there's this, and that used to be the case with so many of these artists. You hear so many of these old rock stars be like, this guy didn't have to take a chance, but he took a chance, and we cut this tape, and it was crap, but here we are.
I think it has to do with the distribution of funds, where now the labels are losing some of the power because things are becoming a lot more independent.
100%.
Earlier on, there was all of this money for advancements. I mean, and that's what I mean. Like, things have changed dramatically, not just technologically, but just the ebb and flow of the business. I mean, Broadway is one thing, but the music business is now, it's
a mess. It's a mess.
You know, things audio-wise are, records are being made from all over very quickly.
And very poorly.
They can be, yeah. They can.
Some of them are very poor. And these songs that people are writing, if we can call them songs per se, you know, the 4 choruses and a bridge, and they're putting it out, and they're making, you know, they're putting it on TikTok for 100 million views,
right?
And they're making, you know, all this money, and now all of a sudden they're an incredible songwriter. I'm like, whoa. Okay.
Well, again,
I just said I gotta buckle up, because I'm like, okay.
It goes. The big question is culturally. You know, to me, I think it just goes back to where we're at.
Yeah.
And because if somebody's listening to it, if a populace is listening to it, perception's reality. If that's what they're perceiving. And that's the scary thing.
That's the thing that I hate.
That's what I'm talking about.
That's what breaks me so much about it. And that's why I get passionate about it, is because it's so personal to me. And like, it's like I said, music is spiritual to me. So when it goes from spiritual to smut, for me, I'm just like, why? Like, why are we really allowing this to happen? And like,
I don't know.
People hate real music now.
It seems to be the case.
Like, people are like, I hate real music. And then, like, when they go to a bar, they're being super disrespectful to people who are actually on stage. And my favorite thing is, like, they're like, play Freebird. It's like, you know what I'm saying? It's like, they always want, like, that and Sweet Caroline, so that they can just be drunk idiots and buffoons. And so anyway, it's not, listen, there's nothing wrong with any of that. And I would much rather them play that than some of the other stuff that is getting played this day and age. But again, it's like I start thinking about, like, what's the influence and the affluence that we're having, and like, what's the legacy that's being left behind. And you know, I don't know if I went into, you know, a teleportation device and heard some of these songs from TikTok this, you know, 20 years ago. What? I don't know.
No,
I don't know. So anyways, I'm hopeful that there's going to be a reincarnation of good music. And there are people out there who are trying really desperately to do it, but you can't make money. It's tough.
It's tough.
It's tough. So I got faith, and yeah, until then, I just won't buy those other people's music.
or stream it for 0.00 whatever cents.
Yeah, you heard it here first, folks.
All right, man. So again, this has been awesome. So great to have you. And for those that are tuning in for whatever reason later on, it's John Arthur Greene on the Jason Damico show. I've got a fun thing that I like to do at the end. It's nothing, man. It's just I call it the shootout section, or like the wordplay section, where I just say a phrase or a word, give it to you, and you just give me a word back.
This is dangerous.
Off the cuff. No, it's judgment free.
All right. Can you beep things out if I say the incorrect thing?
Sure.
Beep. No, I'm kidding. All right.
We have the Staples button somewhere. That was easy. Yeah. Stage.
Life.
That's good. Song.
Writing.
Marty losing. Mike.
Here.
I like it. It's good. Theater.
Arts.
Comedy.
Laughing.
Drama.
Heartfelt.
Broadway.
Interesting.
North Carolina.
Home.
New York.
Business.
Guitar.
Love it.
Piano.
Love it.
Pizza.
Love it.
I ask everybody this question as the last question on the show, which is, if you could go back in time to your 15-year-old self, knowing what you know now, what'd you tell him?
Not one thing.
Wow.
I wouldn't tell him one thing.
Wow.
Say I love you and you're exactly where you're supposed to be. Keep going. That's
Big.
it.
Big.
Yeah.
I think that's the first time somebody's actually said it that specific. I don't know if anybody's ever said nothing except what you just said.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Yeah. We all have to find our own path. And no matter who tells us, no matter when they tell us, until we find it for ourselves, it'll just be words. So for me, that 15-year-old boy was broken. That 15-year-old boy was so lost. But if that 15-year-old boy didn't get lost, if that 15-year-old boy wasn't broken, I would never be able to be the man I am today.
Yeah.
And so I'm thankful. I'm thankful that I got to walk through it. I'm thankful that God had his hand on me the whole time. Even though I had run from him and everything else, he was right there faithful. So for me, I wouldn't tell him a damn thing.
Future plans, as far as,
whatever God's got, man.
Yeah.
I'm saying yes to a lot of things. Like I said, I'm saying yes to what God's got, and if he opens a window, I'll crawl through it. If he opens a door, I'll walk through it. And other than that, man, I'm just trying to keep my nose clean and my head above water and keep stepping 1 foot of faith after 1 foot of obedience.
What a story. It's so cool to, just go through it today on the show, because you hear things, and I hear things directly from you, but I don't hear the whole thing because we're in a loud place or whatever, doing an open mic, or
of course
in a production or something like that. So it's awesome. Description box for those that are watching, it's all there on YouTube, but for those listening, where can they find you?
JohnArthurGreeneMusic.com. You can find me there. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook, all social media outlets. Got the YouTube page. Come on. Revival sessions every Wednesday morning. Right now, it's every Wednesday morning at 9 a.m. on Instagram Live. But pretty soon, we're going to be having the app coming out. And pretty soon, we're going to be meeting in person as well on Wednesday nights, I think. We're looking for a venue. So if anybody wants to come out, if anybody's interested, shoot me a message.
It's awesome.
Love it.
Well, you guys have been watching, listening to the Jason Damico show. And thank you for subscribing and whatnot. Definitely check out John's links below, and we'll see you on the next one. Peace.